Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life After the Leap podcast. This is your host, Kathy Wright, and I'm excited to be here with you and to share with you as my amazing friend who I adore, Miss Shawnda DeRamus, who is going to talk to us today about monetizing our skill set, monetizing what we know how to do and leveling that up. So, welcome, Shawnda, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Everything's been so formal. You're doing a great job.
Yes, I'm being extra special today in a little booth, a little sound booth. So we're gonna see how it's gonna work out today. But I know it's gonna be great having you here. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for the
So
invitation.
yeah. So it's gonna be great. So I wanted to start off first by kind of like prefacing, what we do here at Life After the Leap. So Life After the Leap is a group of amazing people who are on the cusp of, or who have already made the leap from what they traditionally had thought they might do in their career, their jobs, or even just as a hobby, and have taken that and made the leap forward into something new and exciting. And so I know that you made a similar leap, right? So now you're the president of Strategik513, but you had some work that you were doing prior to that. So let's talk to me about what you used to do and how you made the leap forward to your new next.
Definitely. So I enjoyed, and I always say that because people say, well, you're doing something different. Did you not do like what you did before? And that's not true. For 25 years, I worked in healthcare finance and administration. My last job, I was the director of health economics for a major company that helps sell different medical products in the biotechnology space. And so I really enjoyed that space. And then, as often happens in a company, I'd been there for almost 7 years, and our whole department got laid off. And
Yeah.
so many people they were like devastated. And I was probably the only one in the group who was like, yes, a break. So I always have to preface that with I'm a very hard worker. I've been working since I was 14 years old. In graduate school, they called me Jamaican because I had so many jobs. And that was when you actually had to drive to extra side hustles, right? That you didn't have the luxury of doing it on the computer. And so I had my whole career, I'd worked really hard, always in the top 10% of performers in my department, so on and so forth. Really enjoyed it, did a great job, traveled way too much, got a little
Mm.
burned out a little bit, and just wanted a break. And so they had offered us a year severance, and I just didn't start looking. And so my previous boss, who I loved, she called me one day and she said, I see your Facebook page. I see you're having fun, but you're not looking for a job. And I said, no. And she said, well, when do you plan on starting? I said, I don't know. I'm not looking for a job right now. So I just enjoyed myself for the whole year. Had some family issues. My grandmother, who lived in California, got sick, and I was just happy to be off. And also, and having had saved and invested and made money in the stock market. And what I realized is I finally had time to take a look at what I had saved, and I was like, I can be off for a while. I don't have to go back to work. They're going to pay me for a year, and I might take another year or whatever. And then COVID happened. And that
Yes.
wasn't supposed to happen in the middle of my break. And so I had a little panic for a second, like, okay, you've been off work for quite a long time. I was also at that time president of my Delta chapter, and I wanted to do that well. And so I made the choice that but until I finish my presidency, I don't want to go back to work. I have enough money to pay my bills, but I probably should start working on something that brings some income in because I don't want to spend all my savings. And so that's sort of what I did before. And then the transition really came kind of easy on one part of my business. I actually do two different things right now to make income. So one of them was I was helping friends during the pandemic because everyone thought they were a stock investor during the pandemic, right? But my friends
Yes.
would call me and
All
say,
the progress.
right,
All-
everybody
all-
was a professional.
yeah.
You had
Mhm.
enough time to watch just enough YouTube videos to be dangerous. But my
Mhm.
friends knew that I have been interested in the stock market for quite some time, and I've been begging them to get involved and begging them to do it for a long time, and they just weren't ready to take the leap, or they may have taken a little bit of my advice but not done much. And more, they kept calling me. At the beginning of the pandemic, I think the first March to April of that first month of the pandemic, I had like 7 calls. And so I was helping them, find some research, read this book, look at this stock, this is what you need to look at. And finally, one of my friends who really just has this knack for pulling things out of you, she said, why do you keep doing this for free? And I said, what do you mean? She's like, we would get on a Zoom call and pay you money for your expertise. It doesn't make sense for you to keep doing that for free. So I didn't really fully believe her, but I was like, okay, what I want to do is I'll do a test class. I'll get 10 people and I'll tell them they can do it for free because I think that's the only way they're going to do it. And they'll be my test class. And literally I put it on Facebook that morning because the
Uh-huh.
Lord had really been dealing with me with you get great ideas, but you don't do anything with them. You just think about it and keep moving. So
Mhm.
I was like, well, okay, Lord, I'll put this on my Facebook page right now. And I did, and I walked away from it.
Yeah.
And by the time I went back to look, the 10 spots were taken. I had to tell people, sorry, I don't have enough free spaces left. And then, you've already sort of cast the net, right? You've already took the leap. You just got to figure it out. So I spent the next 2 weeks putting together material and so on and so forth. And those people who took the first class, I owe them because it was good, but it wasn't as good as the class is now.
Mhm.
But that's how you learn, right? You do something
Yeah.
at first and you figure it out. And so that is sort of how Strategic 513 started. And I did that for all of the pandemic and had several classes and increased my price and met people who did what I did. And they would say, you're not charging enough. They still say I'm not charging enough, but I'm fine with that. I want to
Um,
make it accessible to more people. I don't think investing today has to be something that just wealthy people do. I think anyone that has some extra cash or is willing to hustle up on some extra cash can make it work. And so that is why I do what I do. And I love it. This morning I
and
traded.
you're really good at it. You're
Well,
really
thank you. And I've been able to make money also, right? So I also challenge myself to do more trading. So during the pandemic, I might get up one morning and lose $800. I always say that part first because I think a lot of people who teach stock investing lie and tell you they only make money. You lose money sometimes. But I
Mhm.
might get up the next day and make $4,500, or I make 40, whatever it is the day that the market will allow. I make it and I'm happy with it. But now I know that I have several T-shirts that I had made up that say multiple streams, and my goal is to live into that and have multiple streams of income because that's how wealthy people live. And all the books that I've been reading, I think one of the things that sort of drives me in my business is I'm sure you read it too, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Have you read
Yes.
that book? Everybody who
Cover
wants
to
to have
cover.
something has read that book, right? And so I
Yeah.
love the book and I hate it. So I love it
Mm.
because it's a great motivational book, but you don't leave it really knowing how to do anything. You have
Mm.
some ideas. You may think maybe real estate might be it. Some of the preposterous things that he says you can go to a bank tomorrow to do. Go ahead and try it. It's not going to work. And so I just felt like, okay, he got me hooked on the fact that there's different ways of looking at things, but he didn't tell me how to do it. So my goal was when I figure out how to do some things, I want to be able to show other people how to do those things. And so that's what I spend my time doing. I do a lot of presentations to youth, helping them better, to early on start looking into stock investing. There are young men who are out there. There's a young man right now who his class is $5,000, and he gets
Ooh,
people to take his class,
okay.
right? Right, right, very
Yeah.
expensive,
Yeah.
right? But he does it because he does some very bold things, and he's teaching people how to do those things. And so, and I tell people about him all the time because I think it's awesome that there are young people that are out there doing those things. And so I just get really excited. So this morning, how my life has changed, where I used to be jumping on a plane to go somewhere and be gone all the time. My dog would be somewhere being sat. I am also am very active in my nieces' lives. If they needed me, they'd have to call me, but I couldn't necessarily be there because I might be on the West Coast. Now, if they call me, I say, you know what, I'll bring my computer. I'll come down to Lexington and hang out with you at University of Kentucky or Ohio University for the day
Mhm.
because I can do what I do anywhere. My
Yeah.
dog is under the table right now. And now I probably couldn't go back to work because he's spoiled rotten.
Yeah.
So that is sort of how it naturally progressed. In addition, I had another person who I listen when I have one-on-ones with people who I think are really brilliant. And she said, well, I get you're building that business, but why would you throw away 25 years of experience? Did you like what you did? I said, I did. And she said, my understanding is you did it really well. I said, I did. She said, well, why don't you do it part-time? You might like it more if you don't do it all the time. You don't have to travel to do it. So then I started doing my strategic consulting business. So I go in and help businesses also build strategy and do different things that they do. I also write very well. So if they need a business plan written, I can help with that and strategic planning and all those things that I did at my other job anyway. And I accept projects at a pace that keeps me happy. And so that's how I've monetized my talents to two new businesses and a new skill set because I day trade now as well. And I didn't day trade before, I just did long-term investing. So
Wow.
lean into your talents. Don't throw away your job that you previously did under different terms. You might like doing what you were doing. And there's no need of throwing away that experience either. So that's sort of how I got where I am.
Now you I am just floored by the number of things that you are doing and you're doing them all so well. But
Thank you.
I want to go back all the way to the beginning when you talked about your transition from the work you have been doing for 25 years, and they just kind of came in unceremoniously and say, "Hey, it's buy time," right? And I know for some of us, it wasn't so much that the jobs that we're in were creating this time where we have to think about, oh my God, we're being laid off or whatever thing. We have to transition quickly. For some of us, it was like we just decided, like, okay, it's time for me to go. In my case, I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something else.
Right.
So, talk to me about you had a lot of courage in that moment, right? Like you knew you had saved. You knew that you didn't. It didn't sound like you put a lot of pressure on yourself to kind of figure it out right away. So how were you able to do that and like not like be panicked or anxious? How were you able to do that?
Yeah, so I must preface this by saying I have taken a break from work 3 times. And I am always able to do that. And I always tell people because I keep my bill structure low and my savings high. So when I'm working, I'm stacking cash the whole time. Very early on, I had a job that I hated once, and I would say, well, why would I keep doing this? And so I would start building, and I won't tell you the crass name that I came up for the fund, but it's KMA, Kiss Mine, you can figure the rest out. And I would put money in that fund every single payday because I was like, there's no way I'm going to keep doing this job. I work sun up to sundown. Don't get me wrong, they gave me great bonuses, but there comes a time when there's not enough money. And at the time, my mother had gotten ill, and I didn't want to have to feel like I was torn between doing a great job at work because I was type A about work anyway, and my mother. And something happened, and the CEO had the audacity to tell me that if I didn't come to work the next day and my mom was having surgery, that there would be a problem. He had been off for 2-3 weeks taking care of his father, but I had to be there because he needed me to be there because he couldn't have a meeting. We're having a meeting with this CEO, and you have to be there. There are 5 very brilliant people going to that meeting, and I'm pretty sure you can handle it. And I had already prepared them for the meeting. And so he really thought that next morning when my mother had surgery, that I would be at his meeting versus my mother's surgery. And I had made up my mind when I got up that morning. I checked my bank account. My bank account said I could do it, and I quit. So I always tell people I am a firm believer in you may never be perfect. Like you may never have exactly the right amount of money, but manage your bills such that you can actually sit down and say, if nothing else, all I have to cover is $2,000. Like break that down to whatever that amount is, and then figure out how you would cover that either with savings or side hustle or whatever it is. And then once you know that number and you know how you do it, it gives you liberty to say, I don't have to keep doing this. Now, again, the job that I left most recently, I loved. So there was a different situation. But I know some people are in jobs that they don't really care for, or that maybe it just doesn't match with their lifestyle. They have children, they need more time to spend with their kids. And if COVID taught us nothing, we should be spending time with the people we love, right?
Yeah.
So my first advice is get your finances in order. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to tell you all your debt has to be paid, but you need to know enough about your bill structure. And we all learned this instantly with COVID, right? The outside closed. Many people lost their jobs. And I think one of the reasons that we're seeing many people leave their jobs now is because we figured it out, right? We said we couldn't, but we did. We got stuck in the house. You couldn't go to work. Some people were lucky enough to have a salary that kept them going, but some people didn't have that luxury. And what did they do? They figured it out. So preemptively figure it out. And you should do that whether you're planning on leaving your job or not. You should always know what would it take to keep this ship going well prior to leaving, right?
Exactly. Yep.
I always knew that number. I mean, I always kept it fun because, like I said, this is the 3rd time I've taken time off of work. And I'm not a person who buys into the concept of retirement. There was a man recently who was a friend of ours, and he worked until he was very, very, very much late in life, way past retirement age. And he died like 3 months after he retired.
Yeah. You hear those stories all the time.
Right.
All the time, yeah.
I would be livid. So I just believe that I don't have an issue with working hard. Who knows? I may decide next year I want to go back to work, but for a period of time. But I want to always have the convenience and the skill set and have monetized my talents and have multiple streams so that if I turn that primary source of income off, can I make it work? And you know me, I like to travel. I don't want to do it and not be able to go anywhere. I want to be able to do some things, right? Now I may do less expensive trips, but I'm going to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of who I am, right? So how are you going to be able to do it in a fashion that makes sense? Now, I'm not saying go ball out on your credit cards or overspend. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about living within your means, because I think once you get to that point, then you don't have the stress, right? Do you really need? My car currently has 220,000 miles on it. The body looks great. No one knows that. Well, I just told the whole world, but anyway. And I'm not buying a new car because I haven't had a car payment in 6 years. And because I don't have a car payment, if Allegiant offers a $125 ticket somewhere, I'm going because I can afford to do that even if I'm not working. So figure out what your budget is, figure out what your lifestyle, what you need. Always have a little extra there, but also be willing to do what you got to do to make ends meet in the meantime, if it gets you to a lifestyle that you enjoy.
I love that advice because I think, sometimes we want to have blinders on about the most important thing, and that's our money,
Right.
right? We want to just be able to know that the tip jack is coming every 2 weeks, and that's about it, right? And
Right.
and I know I have friends who spend all of that and they
Right.
wait, and it's usually before the next check comes, and so there's more time than money available to them, right, in that space. And so, I think we all have to move to a space of maturity around money management, how to leverage our 401ks or money markets, however we're building our portfolio of finances. We all have to reach a level of maturity where we know where everything is, know how we can access it if we should we need to access it very quickly, and then I'm just like, how do we continue to make it grow? So I love that advice because it is the number one thing that I would suggest for anybody who's thinking about a transition, or maybe if you are in a very comfortable role and there's no danger that you might be laid off. You still, I think, need to understand exactly where your money is.
Yes.
Should you need to reach out and take some of it out and do what you need to
Well,
do.
that or maybe the Lord wants you to bless someone with some of the fun. Like the reality is, we all make we had a goal of what we wanted to make when we got to be a certain age. I have mine written down. I had this little book that they gave us when we were graduating, and it has all this little stuff that I was going to accomplish. And the salary, believe it or not, and I thought this was a big deal. I was going to make $35,000, and I was going to be rich. Now I know that was 18-year-old delusional, and it was time value of money. That was 1988, but still, that was what and so when I go back and look at that, I crack up. But it also puts it in perspective, right? Maybe you already got to six figures and now you really don't need the extra. You're just spending it because it's there. You don't have a plan for it. You don't have a plan for all the extra. We're wasting it. The Lord gave it to you and you're wasting it. You're spending it every month. Don't get me wrong. I like nice things too. But do we really need 5 new designer purses? We do not. Come on now. We don't need to go on every trip. I have to tell myself that sometimes. Shawnda, no, sometimes you have to say no. Although I travel a lot, I do need to say no sometimes. And so I think in life, in any other category, we always have a season where you're spending more or doing more. Then you have the Bible talks about fasting. Well, even in your finances, what's going to be the season in the 12-month time frame that you're going to fast? What I mean by that is, I'm not going to spend extra money for X period of time. You decide what that is. So maybe you decide, you know what? For a whole quarter of the year, I'm going to make a challenge of saving my money, and I'm not going to spend. Somebody asked me to go on a trip, and maybe you prepay for a trip in that span, so you feel like you went somewhere. But I'm not. If you no, can't go on a trip, can't do this. Not because I'm depriving myself, but because I know I don't really need it, right? I'm going to read those books that I keep buying that are building up on the shelf. I'm going to have dinner with some people here locally within my budget because I'm going to have an envelope. It's going to have all the money I'm going to spend, or I'm going to put it on Cash App, and when that's gone, I'm done. And then because you do that periodically, you realize how much you're saving, and then it becomes almost a habit, right? But you realize that you can't go on a cruise every week. You can't go on a cruise constantly if you also have other financial goals. So that's also something that sort of helps you put that into perspective, right? We have more money than we need. I'm gonna tell you this story, but I don't want to throw us totally off, so I'll be real brief with it. One time in my job, I was working at this company, and I was gonna get a really big bonus. I had blown the goals out of the water, and I had already calculated right on the envelope. I have already like, okay, I'm gonna put this here. It's probably the biggest bonus, multiple thousands of dollars that I was and multiple tens of thousands of dollars that I had ever gotten, and I had already mapped it out. I'm gonna do this. Now I was gonna put $5,000 away because to me that was doing something. So I'm gonna put this $5,000 away, and I'm not going. So the day that the bonuses were supposed to be cut, my boss schedules lunch with me. She doesn't schedule it with anyone else. And we go to the dinner, and she and I had a great relationship. And she said, Shawnda, it's about your bonus. And I'm thinking, now why is she gonna mess my day up? I already have this calculated down to the penny. I don't need her blowing up the spot. I said, well, Janice, what do you mean? She said, I know how much money you make, and you don't have any children, and you don't. I know how much expenses you have. She said, and you live in Ohio. It's affordable. She lived in Texas. She said, I don't want you to spend your bonus. I said, is it going to be less than I thought it was going to be? She said, no, you have the proper amount. I gave you the amount. She says, but I want to give you some advice. She said, I hope you take it. She said, you're the youngest person on my team, and that's why I'm telling you. She said, my husband and I, they own 2 homes outright. They have a home in the mountains and a home. They don't have any mortgage on their homes. She said, and the reason we don't have a mortgage, and the reason we don't have a mortgage on our cars, and the reason we have money in the bank, and the reason if tomorrow I decided I didn't want to work is because every time I got a bonus or extra money, I treated it like I didn't need it. I said, you don't want me to spend any of it? She said, I don't, but try to at least lean into what I'm saying. So I thanked her because I did get a sense she was trying to be nice, although the inside of me was like, why is she scaring me like that? I thought she was taking my money. So she handed me the check and I went home and I didn't cash it for a while, just sort of said, let it sit to sort of let what she had sort of sink in. And I was like, you know what? She is right. I don't need anything that I have on that list. So I made the decision. I wasn't going to follow her advice 100%. I was going to follow it 50%. So she wanted me to pay down my mortgage. So I paid extra on my mortgage and I put some other money in some other places and I paid down some other debt. And I was more responsible with the money. But the long or the short is that she, just by that one lunch, she changed how I managed my money from there on. And so every time I got money, I'm like, do I really need this? Let me put this piece of away, so on and so forth. So when I got just ready to actually be off of work and some money I put away and didn't even check on it. I had to call and say, I'm making sure this balance is right. Is this my money? Is this all of my money? Because it afforded me the ability to be off for a period of time. And I know some people would have went out and bought a new car or so on and so forth. Because again, my car mileage is up there. I just wanted time. I wanted to be able to travel and do what I wanted to do and spend time with my family and my friends. And so that's what I bought with it. And so I feel comfortable with that.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and I love that there was mentorship, right, in that moment. There was coaching in that moment, and for a lot of us, like I think that we don't necessarily have someone who will tell us like the thing
Right.
that we need to hear in the moment when it could be the tipping point for us, like blowing a bunch of money or saving a bunch of money that will pay off for us in investments and things later. So, I think as we think about like how to leverage this group and how people can connect through this network, I think having someone like you who could help with some financial advice can also, like, I know you're one of your hidden talents is that you're an amazing stock guru, right? But and we got some you got some classes that you're going to be offering, so I want to make sure that we get to that too. But having someone like you in this space who can be a voice to add some value to people so they can more deeply understand the opportunity that can they can create for in their own lives if they're more thoughtful about their spending habits, their budgeting, and planning for the future.
Yes, I think sometimes we think mentor, we think kids, but we all need mentors. And sometimes it's just your close friend, right? Like I told you, I have a friend who, anytime I'm doing something, she always has this goal for me that's much higher than I have for myself. But why don't you think about blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, okay, you're on my board of directors because you always have another level that you think I can take things to. So I make sure I talk to her regularly. And I have other friends that are the same way. But I think that also the piece is the great part about being off of work is I have time to pattern my life around having conversations with people like you who give me energy on a regular basis, right? And I can pull you into different projects that I'm doing. And the project that you helped me with last week, I greatly appreciated it. But I make sure that when I schedule my week, I have one of those people in my lunch schedule for the week. I don't want to waste just going out to lunch. I want to go to lunch with, I have another friend named Robin. I can go to lunch with Robin and when I get back in my car, I'm ready to take over the world. I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's not always things that are like super pot. Sometimes she's like, girl, if you don't get rid of that Gmail address, it's like sometimes it's that kind of stuff, right? But you sort of level up, right? And I've had some great people that have been sort of I lean into, and other people that I also try to help. And so just make sure you're constantly doing that as well. But I know the main purpose for us talking today was to talk about monetizing your talents, and I don't want to just talk about my life, but I just did want to say this. one of the things that people sometimes get scared of is, well, I know how to do it, but I only know how to do it this much. And then they use that to talk themselves out of doing things. And I think one of the things that I have really been learning as I do more work in this, the personal finance space and so on and so forth, find someone who does it well and pay them for their time. So maybe they're not your mentor, but maybe you'd say, hey, Kathy, I know you do XYZ well, and I want to pay you $150 for your time. So would you go out for lunch with me? And I'm going to sit down and pick your brain and get your questions organized. And that's like a common thing now. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. One of my friends was like, oh yeah, I, charge $150. So I paid her $150. She is a stock concept I didn't understand as well. Now I could have watched 25 YouTube videos and lost $1,000 figuring it out. And I would have figured it out. I'm a pretty bright person. But I could pay her $150, ask her all my questions. She would explain it to me, and we could move on with life. So also lean into those kind of things. Like, put money, if you plan on starting a new business and that's a business that you haven't done before, or there's some question you have, find someone who's an expert and pay them for their time. And ask them all the questions you need. And you'll be surprised at the number of yeses that you're going to get.
Absolutely. I love that advice too. I think it's critically important that that we leverage the expertise of people, and it's good to learn. It's good to be to really like embrace like any new concept or idea. But when you have the opportunity to be in contact with someone who's an expert in that space, I think we have to be thoughtful around making sure that as we ask for their expertise, that we know that we should be paying them for that, because they're saving us time and energy.
Right. They're gonna tell you all the pitfalls in an hour that you need to know. And you never know, they may call you back with something else, or they may send you some kind of book that helps you. But just know that as you start building whatever it is, if it's an insurance company, I have a friend who, on a whim, one of her talents was she cooks healthy food. So now they've leaned into that, she and her husband, and she has a business where she does meal planning for an abundance of people, and that's her business, right? And your business can come out of all kind of talents. Maybe it's something sophisticated. I had a friend who, we had a data software that we were using regularly at work that no one else knows how to use. He became very proficient at it. And then he just started going to companies and say, hey, I'll do this for you, one project for free, and then we'll talk about how much I cost. Well, by the time he got to the cost conversation, they're willing to pay him anything because they don't know how to use the software, right? And so that was his side hustle. He would go out and monetize his talents about how to use this particular software. But it doesn't have to be that drastic. Like, I have a cousin who, she came to visit me. She was moving out of town. She had just retired from her government job. And so I knew she did really well, but I didn't know how well. So she pulls up, she has this really fancy Mercedes Benz. And I'm like, wow. So I go out and she gives me a tour of the car or whatever. And I'm like, woo, that must have set you back a pretty penny. And she said, well, I, as a side hustle, she said, I don't tell people. She said, but I've been cleaning people's houses for the last 20 years or 15 years. I don't know how long it was. And none of us knew it. And she says, I have like 20, 25 customers. She said, most of the weeks I don't even have to do much because the house is really already clean. And she likes to clean. That's what she does. That's her thing, right? And in the daytime, I don't know exactly what she does, like accountant or something like that. And so she started cleaning people's houses, and it just became a side hustle. She paid cash for that car. She didn't have to pay a dime for it. And then the other piece that the Lord blessed her is, she had a friend who was having financial difficulty. And since she was leaving town and leaving the business, she gifted her all of her customers and all of her business. She says, now, the problem is I'm not sure she understands how big of a gift I've given her if she manages it well. She said, I know how much money it has yielded me over the years. She said, but I'm going to give her the whole business. I'm not going to charge her a dime. The Lord laid it on my heart just to give it to her. And her monetizing her talent allowed her to be able to bless someone else. I pray that that woman is doing a great thing with the money and the business that she was gifted. But that was her side hustle. That's how she made it work for her. Now she's off enjoying Mai Tais on her retirement. She doesn't have a lot of experience, a lot of bills, because she paid down her bills with that money over years. And she also saved quite a bit of it. So it may be something super sophisticated, but it doesn't have to be. Don't make it very difficult. And which brings me back to answering your other question. So yes, I have a stock class that I've been teaching for quite some time now. It's doing really, really well. And so I teach people over Zoom. It's in 2 sessions and 2 sessions of homework. You will be ready to be able to jump into the stock market. So I make all those crazy terms make sense to you, and I help you with a strategy. And then you can go out and pick your own stocks. But more importantly, you can start putting your savings to work, because with inflation, every time you put that money in the piggy bank and let it sit there, you pretty much made that money be worth less. So that's one of the things I do. And then for the people who aren't ready for that, I also have a financial coaching business side of the business. I only take so many clients. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I actually help people who they've already read the books and they've already been trying to budget, and they just don't have the discipline necessarily. And don't be embarrassed. Many people don't. And they need somebody that's going to help them intensify that for a period of time. And so it's 3 to 6 months of coaching, and then you should be able to do it your own. And then we only have check-ins to make sure you're still doing what you're supposed to do. But the goal is that everyone has what they need. They have an emergency savings. They have the ability to be able to invest. If an emergency came about and they needed to be able to find money for that emergency, they could. If they lost their job, if tomorrow their job said, hey, we don't need your services any longer, they'd have enough money to tide them over. So that's the goal in the financial coaching piece of it. So yes, I do both of those. And then if anyone needs any consulting services, I'm always available for that too. So I got to make sure I get my plugs in.
Of course, of course. I mean, that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on a podcast, because I think what you're doing is so important. I think there's so many people in this group and my friends that are really trying to use their money, make their money work for them. And we've all figured out the hard way, a lot of us, right, that the savings, just putting your money in the bank isn't, I mean, we're getting less than 1% interest on anything we haven't seen.
And the bank is taking that money and they're making big money. How do you think banks make money? They get all of the regular people to go park your money there, do absolutely nothing with it, and then they take that money and make it work. Well, you need to make your money work for you as well. You don't need anyone taking your money and taking advantage of it. You need to do some things to make sure that money is making money for you. Every day that you invest and make money is one less day that you have to work so hard. So your money needs to be out there and working for you.
Yeah, and so we all have an opportunity now that Shawnda is here, and she's got Strategik513 to tap into her knowledge to learn how to do that better. I know that you're going to share the times and the dates and everything, and we'll post here in the group here on Facebook. But we'll also we'll share it out, and because we want to fill up your class, because we all need to. Yeah, we need to fill up your class, because one thing I know about you, Shawnda, is that you're relatable. You're a master at storytelling, and I think stories help create relationship and create people understanding that you deeply care about this topic. And so I'm excited that we can get access to your genius through Strategik513 and take your stock class, because I'm signing up.
I'm excited. The next class is already starting to form. And if you can't make the next class, then we'll put that on the flyer. Just let me know that you're interested in a future class. I'm already always building classes as well based on people's needs. And again, it's on Zoom. You don't have to drive to the class. It's not hard. It's very accessible. It's not like it's a hard topic. Really, I try to break it down so that it's fun. And then you're learning with other people. So when you ask a question, you don't have to feel silly, because you're like, okay, well, they asked something that was equally on the same level. So we try to keep the classes small enough so people can ask questions and it's more interactive. And then again, you give me 2 classes and you do the homework for 2 weeks and you're ready. You're good. You're ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, where else could you learn all of the ins and outs that you need to start investing? Now, Shawnda, if you are already an investor, is this a right class for you too? Or is there another level?
So I am doing a level 2 class as well, which will come out soon. And so if you're already investing and you're at a very high level, like if you think you know most of what it is, you just need some more the more sophisticated strategies, then just send me an inbox and say, hey, when you do options or day trading, I want to do that class. And so I'm developing that. Now, initially, I was reluctant to teach day trading and options, but all of the males in the class, even if they've not put a penny in the stock market, they're like, I'm ready. So that just cracks me up. Men tend to be that way. So yes, I will be doing options and day trading class as well, which is a more advanced class. And I always tell people that in my philosophy, you shouldn't be. Options essentially magnifies whatever decision you've made. But if you just started doing it, you might not want to do that because you might not be doing it right yet. So I want to make sure you have the basics, you know what you're doing. And even with the basics, you don't ever have to learn another thing and you can make just as much money as the next person. I teach you some of what Warren Buffett believes in my class so that you can do fundamental long-term investing and some swing trading with the beginning class. So if you do fundamental investing already and you know how to swing trade, then that's not the class for you. You want to go ahead and tell me that you want to take the next level class, and I'll put you on the waiting list for the next level class.
So I know we talked about the class happening soon. So there'll be a flyer that we're going to distribute it in the Life After the Leap Facebook group. But if someone wanted to reach out to you, what is a way that they could reach you? Is a website available? How do they do that?
Yes. So right now you want to email me at DeRamus at bstrategic with a K.com. Be strategic. So DeRamus at bstrategic.com. Our website is up, but we've got some things we're working on. So we'll have that hopefully worked out in the next couple of weeks. But right now you would email me and that's how you get a hold of me.
Awesome. And so what we'll do is we'll make sure to put your email address, and when your website is live, we'll also share that in the group so that if anybody needs to contact you after watching the podcast, that they can immediately get in contact with you, because they may want to use you for the other part of what you do, which is consulting and coaching. Okay.
Right.
All right.
As well. So yeah, so definitely feel free to reach out. These things are not difficult. You'd be surprised. I love when my students come back to tell me some great things. With one student, she's very quiet, so you don't always know what she's doing. She happened to call me 3 months after taking the class, and during the pandemic, she cleaned up on all the pandemic stocks. And she wouldn't have done that because she wouldn't have felt comfortable. And so she called me. She said, my husband has decided. He previously managed both of their retirement accounts. And my husband has decided that he no longer can do that. He said, you have more expertise. So he has given her all the retirement accounts. So she's managing those now because she has the knowledge that she needed to change the game, right? And so that's the whole purpose of Strategik513. We do know how to spell strategic. We know it's spelled with a K because we think that everyone just needs knowledge to change the game. How do I change my situation? How do I create multiple streams? I mean, I sit here and day trade at my table and make money. And so, by the 10 o'clock, I'm done and I made some money, and that makes my day and I move on. So I hope that other people can learn the same skill and talent.
Well, I know with your leadership, your mentorship, your coaching, that anybody that connects with you is going to make money. I'm excited to be a part of your class for this next set. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out today and being a part of the podcast. Your story is amazing and very empowering. And I want you to know how much I greatly appreciate you coming by and sharing your expertise today.
Well, thanks for the invitation. But I want to tell you, I so love this new endeavor. I think there are many people who are in this space or want to be in the space of being able to walk away or partially walk away from whatever they do during the day. And these conversations that you're sharing help people know how to do that. And that's the wonderful thing about the digital world that we live in, right? We all can share what we're doing, and I can grow, you can grow, we can all shine together. And so thank you so much for creating this platform. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Shawnda. Thank you, Shawnda. So that's Shawnda DeRamus, the president of Strategik513. You can catch her here in this space on Life After the Leap with the flyer and her her email, and her website will be live in just a few more weeks. And so we'll also make sure that we pin that in the comment section. Awesome. So thank you, Shawnda, and thank you everybody for watching. And we'll see you next time on Life After the Leap.